So, be careful not to use salt in the garden. From that, there's no like, oh, it flaked. Oh, hey, welcome, folks. I'm so glad that you are tuned into here, the Mountain Gardener at Waters Garden Center. Today's garden class is on evergreens that bloom. So you Californians should be really happy. So that's kind of, anyway, that's it. Pull up a chair anywhere. There's more back here. So join us at any place. You're welcome. So I am Ken Lane. I'm the owner of the Garden Center. I've owned the Garden Center, my wife and I, for 20 years. As of this spring, 20 years. So we were owners before that, but 100% owners. Harold Waters stepped back 100% in 2002. And so I was hoping to have Harold with us for the 60th anniversary. Unfortunately, I don't know if you saw, we lost him last week. So kind of a sad thing to lose your founder. It's been a hard couple of weeks for our family, but we lost him suddenly. Didn't suffer. It's not like we were waiting for him to die. It's just like he was kind of like the Energizer Bunny. He kept going. He just kind of stopped one day. Said, that's it. So he's 85, 84. So about to be 85 on St. Patty's Day, March 17th. So we're going to have his memorial on St. Patty's Day. We're not wearing black. We're wearing green. There will be corned beef. So that's kind of what will happen. So we're kind of looking for the celebration. All of the family from all over the country, all of them are coming, which should be a hoot. So anyway, that's kind of a sad news I'll share with you. You kind of let your friends know what's going on in your lives. That's kind of our life this week. Kind of rough, so we're kind of going through things. But gardening always makes things better, doesn't it? So I just think skip politics or woes that you have. Get outside, fresh air. Even when it's snowing, it feels pretty good. So today's class, I thought I'd go over a couple things. One, you're in the time for fertilizing. You should be fertilizing everything in the yard by the end of March. This is really important, especially for evergreens. Evergreens, they get these short days and cold nights, they get chlorotic. That is, they get yellowed in the midwinter. So that fertilizing really helps them to stay green. Also, certain plants don't like our alkalinity. And so you'll find like your red-tipped photinia. That's that big evergreen shrub that gets up above head height. The new growth is red. It is notorious for being yellow. It's still too hot, huh? Okay, so it turns yellow in the winter. If you simply fertilize it more often, it'll be bright, vivid green. The new growth will be bright, glowing red. The flowers will come out and be bright white. So food is kind of more important here than other places in the country. And the reason is we've got no food. We've got no soil, much less no organics, that natural topsoil that happens for other parts of the country. We don't have that so much. So the plants are more dependent on you for food. Even the natives, I would say, especially the natives, especially this year. I should touch on that. It's not really part of the class, but while I'm fertilizing, so I've done two things in my entire yard. I took actually took 3 bags of all-purpose plant food, and I took my hand spreader and I just slung it everywhere, over all plants, flowers, trees, shrubs, natives, my junipers, my pinions, everything got it. In addition, I added soil sulfur. I got a big bag of it. I just got 1 bag of this, 3 bags of that. That did my yard. I got a half-acre landscape. I own a garden center. I have a lot of plants. That seemed to do it for me. So it went far enough. What the sulfur does, it makes the soil more acidic. It's changing the chemistry of the soil. So you're bringing that pH down, which it naturally rides very high here. So you're probably in that 7.5 to 8, 8.5. I've seen several soil tests come back at 9.2, 9.3. That's basically that's lunar dust. You might as well be growing on the moon. It's terrible stuff. Nothing grows in that. And so if you could bring that pH down, things start to bloom better. They have better color. They'll have better fragrance. Your fruits will be larger. It's all about that pH. Yes, you need the food, but once the pH creeps up too high, it locks up the food. So it might be there in the soil, but the plant can't get to it because the pH is too high. As soon as you lower that pH down, it unleashes everything in the yard. So that's what I'm doing in my yard. I only do this once a year in the spring. I do everything. I just sling it around. It's little tiny sulfur pellets. Here's for you folks online. You take a look. Does that look okay on camera? There you go. Take your time. Go ahead. Write it down. Click. Print screen. Yeah, you got it. Oh, while you're at it too, would you do me a favor? Like I'm competing against Home Depot and Lowe's. They're behemoths. They have $1 million ad budgets. I got nothing. Could you just hit like and subscribe, make a comment? In fact, while you're on there, let's find out, where's everyone from? Anyone new to gardening here? This year, you're just from, where are you from? Maryland. I'm a Virginia boy. There we go. Phoenix. Okay, if you're not from California, you're from Phoenix. You're one of those 2 places. Anyone else, from far away? Colorado, that's good. We're kind of like Colorado, very much. Less wind and the tornadoes are going to kill you, so. Oregon, there you go. Yeah. Anyone else? How about online? Type in the comment field, where are you from? If you're tuned in, just kind of let us know. If someone types in, let us know. Anyone else? Miami? That's like a city or something. Isn't that like Florida? Yeah. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. That's quite a ways. This is your winter home? And Utah, that's the route. You're just kind of like that, yep, you're just from everywhere. That's good. Last chance. Anyone else? San Diego, very good. Love the Californians. Okay, San Diego too? Lots of San Diego folks here. What we notice too is, in the winter, we have a lot of the Alaska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, that cold country, they winter here. Then there's this migration that happens. They leave in the summer, go back to their Minnesota homes, yep. And then the Phoenix folks take their place. And so then they summer here. So we see a lot of folks that have 2 homes, and this is their place. They crash one of the seasons. And we'll go over how to use evergreens in that whole equation. So welcome, glad you're all here. Thank you for sharing even online. We do see you. Okay, so fertilizing. Why I'm doing this food specifically, it's made for us. Do not use out in the landscape, just don't use liquid fertilizers. Miracle Grows, Peters, the liquid stuff you're mixing up with water, it flushes through the soil so fast the plant literally doesn't have time to pick it up. Use that stuff up on the flowers, things in containers, house plants, things that are confined where you can control that, but out in the yard, you need a good granular food that slowly breaks down over a long period of time. This is really important for evergreens like pinyon pines, ponderosas, juniper, cypress, cedar. You know what the evergreens are. It's really important for those. They'll start to elongate in March, April, and so you get that new candle growth, is what we call it, and it only grows once in the spring, most things. Junipers kind of are more methodical, but most pine trees, spruce, you get 1 shot of growth and then it stops. And whatever you get, it's locked in for the year. then you're setting the stage for the next spring's growth to start taking off. So you get one shot at this. So you really want that new growth to be really healthy. That's why you want to fertilize in March, just ahead of the spring growth, so that fertilizer's there. This is also organic. So we're very much anti-synthetic. We're anti, basically, nuclear waste in a can or in a bag. Just that's not good. We're all drinking groundwater. And so this stuff does end up in the water table. So if you're using a chemical base like Scott's product, that stuff flushes down the waterways and we can start drinking it later. So this is organic, so the plants pick up all of it. None of it's wasted, sitting right there, so the plant can, over a 3-month period of time, it just breaks down real slowly so the plant can take in more of the food. The sulfur simply lowers the pH. That's all it does. Changes the chemistry of the soil so it's more. You'll never get what the book tells you. The book says, oh, 6.2 to 6.5 is considered neutral. That's the ideal pH. You'll never get there here. Just get it close. If you can get it under 8, I think you're pretty good. Get it in the 7s. It seems to work pretty good for things. Another little secret, and then I'll move on from fertilizing. This is not a fertilizing class, but it's just time, is aluminum sulfate. So you've got aluminum sulfate they use on hollies, hydrangeas to bring that really bright blue flower on the hydrangeas. Otherwise, they tend to turn kind of pink. That's a pH thing. And aluminum. So the silver that comes out, let's say a Colorado blue spruce, that blue and silver color, that's aluminum. It's actually a coating. If you rub your finger down the blue spruce on that blue growth, it'll actually come off. It'll actually wipe and turn green. It's a secretion the plant throws off. And so if you can throw some more, you can lower the pH and give it some aluminum sulfate, it brings that color out. And so if your Colorado spruce, your Vanderwolf pine, your Wichita blue junipers, if they're kind of going off color, you're going, that doesn't quite look right, give it some aluminum sulfate instead of the sulfur, kind of be strategic. It'll actually turn bright silver again. So we're going deep into chemistry of fertilizers and plants. That's what they like. So I'm just telling you, that'll bring the color out. You can use this on lilacs. Lilacs, probably for mine, I find the sulfur, it's a little less expensive. It goes farther, you get more sulfur for the buck, basically. I find this does my lilacs just fine. They don't need that extra aluminum per se. This just brings the fragrance out of a lilac and the size of the flower or the flower count. So, okay. That's how to fertilize. Also, I'm going to send you, I should do that here. I've got 3 things I'm going to send you. 1, how to fertilize. Let's see. Hey, Ken, do I have a pen to send around with this? Hold on, I got this. You said there's one on the clipboard. Oh, yeah, it's right there. Look at that, right in front of my face. I'm such a man. Oh, my gosh. There's 3 things I want to give you. How to fertilize. It just goes over exactly what I just told you. How often, what to use. If you missed a note, it'll be right there. Then I also want to send you, I wrote an article on the 9 evergreen plants in February that just look good. So these are smaller plants. That was from last year I wrote that one. I'll send you a link to that. And then it's got links on how to go find those plants. We'll probably have them here, but also you can buy them online. We've got an online store. We've got partnerships with online folks. And then the Dynamic Dozen evergreen ground covers. Not necessarily blooming, but they're evergreens that kind of spread. That one I wrote 2 or 3 weeks ago, earlier in February. So I'll send both of those to you in case you missed that. Okay, so look for those later in the day. Just be a link. You can have it'll be an HTML landing page. It'll be right there for you in full color. Yeah. Take one of those. Yeah. So the question was fertilizing, humic, soil sulfur, aluminum sulfate, weed preventers. Could you explain all that in 90 seconds or less? Yeah, it's all supposed to be done now. Yes, do all of those now. Yeah. Nope, does not matter. So her question for you folks online, I know, I'm trying not to ignore you. We're here for you. Her question was, we've got weed killers, fertilizers. Is there a specific order you should put them in that's better than the other? It doesn't matter. Just do the work. Also, I never, ever, ever work my stuff in the ground. I did do most of my fertilizing before the storm came because I wanted to take advantage of the moisture. I kind of know the importance. So if you miss that, just do it. We're going to have more snow. There's going to be more rain. March is typically a wet month for us, both water-wise and snow-wise. It's good. Just get it on there and it will percolate and do all the work. It'll go through the soil. It'll go through the fabrics. It'll go through and be available to your plants. Just get it on there. I would say it's really important out of those three that you mentioned. The most important would be putting the weed preventers down because things are actively growing right now. So you're seeing the dandelions, they're already, the horehound's already this big. That's a nasty weed. You really want to get that stuff down now before they germinate because once those weeds start to germinate, you've got to now physically dig them out or spray them or do something else. You can keep them from actually germinating, that's the best. So I put all the weed preventers down really in January is when I put it down. And then I'm fertilizing at the end of February, first part of March. All of this you should be done by the end of March for sure. And we are full on spring. You're seeing your roses right now bud. They're starting to grow, not fast, but they're starting. So I gave you my card, not so you can see my pretty face, but on the back of it, it's got the water guide on how to water. I'm not going to cover watering. It's not time to turn the system on. It's still cold out. But once you start to see your plants flushing new growth, they're in bloom or they're they've got leaves on them, that's your cue. Oh, they're starting to use moisture. So you should start either hand watering or clicking that irrigation back on or manually watering in the middle of the day. And really it's April through October is our growing season. That's when we are full on, everything is actively growing. April through October, you're watering about once a week. Established plants, okay? So don't worry too much about things until April into March, somewhere in there. Yeah, but I'm from Chino Valley, it's different. No, you're the same. I'm from Camp Verde. It's different. You Camp Verde folks, you think you're so special. It's the same. Sedona's the same. Paulden, Prescott Valley, Dewey, they're all the same. We're all the same. We get very cold at night, bright, warm days. It really comes down more, are you north, south, east, west? If you're at a morning sun, Jerome has that morning sun hitting them first thing in the morning, it warms things back up. So it actually increases, they get an extra growing zone because it just doesn't stay cold as long. So if you're on a north side mountain, I'm on a north side hill, it's cold. There's still snow there. It hasn't gone anywhere. And it's not going to go anywhere for several weeks. It's going to be there for a while because it's a two-story house. It's always shaded. It's cool. The south side of the house, it's already melted. So it's already starting to melt off. So it really depends more on how much sun does that garden get than what is my elevation. We're all going to get cold at night. Yeah, Prescott might, Highland Pines, Broom Creek might get 3 degrees colder. So you're 17 degrees instead of 20. That's still cold. It's just cold. So it's just going to, really, if you're towards in a gully, you'll notice if you're walkers, your neighborhood, because when you walk the neighborhood, you get near a dry wash down there, it gets real cold all of a sudden. Cold air settles, warm air rises. So almost sometimes on top of the hill is better than at the bottom of the hill, elevation-wise, because that cold air settles. So don't worry so much about where I live. Worry more about getting the timing right on things. And fertilizing, that's what you want right now. But you can read that if you got more questions, ask. We try to make it simple. What I tried to do was, my goal, again, I'm a small business owner, so I got no ad budget, but I got friends. And so my goal is to get my logo in every irrigation box in Yavapai County. So this is made to tape inside your garden journal, inside your irrigation box. So you can go, when did Ken say to turn this thing on again? Well, right there, April through October is when you do your irrigation. Here's about how you do it, okay? All right, so Let's start with today's class. Kind of 20 minutes of nothing, over and over. So evergreens. So 20% of your landscape should be dedicated to evergreens, or you'll lilacs and forsythias and quince, all these early spring bloomers. Then you got 20% to your summer bloomers, crepe myrtles and roses Sharons. Roses look really good in the summer. 20% should be towards fall color. These are your maples and aspen, just that bright fall color that we're famous for. And then that last 20%, so you got winter, spring, summer, fall. The last 20% is whatever tickles your fancy, just do that. So if this is your winter home, focus more of that 20% on evergreens, because this is when you're here. This is your summer home. Don't put any more evergreens here. You're not here. Who cares? Put it in the summer bloomers where you can enjoy the hummingbirds coming through for that Russian sage or salvias. Put it towards that. If you're neither, this is your permanent home all the time. You just like RVing around the country, visiting kids and the best golf courses. Well, then focus in on whenever you're here, just come to the garden center and I'll have plants that'll look good at that season. So focus in on that. But that's that fudge factor. Play with it the way you want. Make it that. But you do need to have some sort of balance or your landscape will look off. Today we're focused on landscapes that have evergreen and they bloom too. Kind of a dual benefit. And so I'll start down here. This is one we only have. Let me move this right here so the folks online can take a look. So these are called flowering heath or heather. They're a alpine plant. We only have this now through probably about March, and then we're out of it. This is limited crop. It's an evergreen in that it blooms. It's been in bud since last fall, so it looked like it was about to bloom. It's like teasing, kind of like rhododendrons. They have these huge flower buds. You're thinking they're going to open. These do the same thing. And then finally, they just erupt in color late winter, early spring. This will bloom for a couple months, and then it's just this beautiful green. If you look underneath, it's got this great, just nice green mound to it. I've grown this at all elevations in Prescott Valley, all the way down to 4,200 foot down to Skull Valley, in full sun, javelina, elk, deer, leave it alone, doesn't bother it. But just has this nice, gets maybe not even knee high, about 18 inches high, kind of this beautiful little mound. I've grown it in containers to right in the ground. But flowering heath comes in pink and white. Those are your only two colors. But it's just a nice little perennial evergreen shrub, perennial evergreen. I don't know how to define it. It's just a pretty little plant. The foliage looks like a fern almost. When it gets done blooming, have this nice green mound to it. But I'm happy with it. Animals didn't eat it. It took the wind of Prescott Valley. You know, that's ferocious out there. It didn't mind that. It was on my patio in a container. It was fine. So it's a great little plant. A couple shade plants. So heaths are sun. I find they bloom better in the sun. At least 6 hours of sun, I would say these. You get it more shade, it'll grow. It just won't be it'll just be green instead of just flowers. You're planting that for the flowers though. These, people are surprised we can grow azaleas and rhododendrons. We do really well with those in the shade. These plants do not like the Midwest. You'll find these out Northwest. You'll find these in full sun. Not here, not at this elevation. It likes more shaded areas. It'll take some sun. But you'll see this rhodie here out in the Highland Pines area, Hazy Homestead, out in the pine trees. You'll see great big ones just out there in the landscape. Beautiful under the canopy of the trees. It's stunning, and they get substantial. Again, animals don't eat these. So if you've got deer, antelope anymore are a thing. So we're seeing these prairies being built on, and so antelopes are coming in, jumping the fence, going, I think I'll graze here. They don't bother these at all. Bright flowers, you're seeing the buds right now. I don't know if you can see those online. Each one of these little buds right there, those are going to be a flower here in probably by the end of March. These will typically be in full bloom, like so much flower, like you almost can't see the foliage to it. So it's a great little plant. Rhododendrons are really great in the shade. A companion with these, now these get a little bit taller. You want a companion in the shade. This is another one, probably the most fragrant. I think this has more fragrance than even lilacs or roses do. This is called Lily of the Valley, or Pieris. Lily of the Valley, just go for that, it's easier. Comes in green, straight green. I brought this one for you because it's variegated, super unusual. You're only going to find this one at only the finest garden centers. Really, it's pretty special. You don't see variegated Lily of the Valley very often. I like it in the shaded areas, this lighter color, as I find the lighter foliage shines better where in the darker parts of the garden. I find it just has this better contrast to it. But this will open up. Again, these are not in bloom yet. I don't think it's in bloom. It's just starting to crack and show some color. In a couple weeks, this will be in full bloom. It'll bloom for a couple months straight with the most fragrance you've ever had. I really like this one myself. My name's Ken. We're just gardeners. We're talking over the back fence. I like using this one in a container by the front door, because typically the front doors are covered or they're just protected some. They're darker. It's bright, it's cheery, but when you put it in a container, it raises it up where the fragrance is right there, where it meets you every time you come and go in the door. That's a great way. We put these at the front of hotels, commercial settings, because they're so fragrant. You cannot get into the commercial setting without going, oh, what is this? What is that smell? It'll stop you. Bees like those too, yeah. So bees will come out. We're seeing so they're hibernating right now, but they're hungry right now. They've been hibernating for 3-4 months. The males are going to come out foraging for flowers. There's not anything out there for them. So Pieris will be one of them that they'll find very attractive. Rosemaries will start blooming here shortly. Boxwoods are a great pollinator for those really early bloomers that can help your bee populations. So this is the exact same thing as you see the difference. In fact, these three are all the same. They're all evergreen. That's the winter color. The flowers have been budding up for at least since last fall, but they're just about to bloom, just about to actually flower. This one's like 1 week away from opening up and blooming. I find the white ones bloom a little better or have more fragrance, don't bloom better. This blooms just fine, but the fragrance is a little stronger, sometimes too strong. If you get it in a tight space, let's say a courtyard or something, it can really fill up that space with this real sweet, almost sickening sweet smell to it. Lily of the Valley, though, it's a great one. Deer don't eat that. No, not at all. In fact, let me think here. Deer don't eat any of them except for this one. All the rest of them, let me make sure. All the rest, sometimes they'll nibble. The gophers will eat this one, but not deer. So again, all of us have different things. My nemesis are javelina and gophers. Those are my things I struggle with. I don't struggle anymore because I keep them out, but they do eat this one. This is pansies. This is how they look when they've been out in full cold. I think it was pretty cold last night. This is how they look. They like the cold. They'll get a little droopy. In fact, it's so cold the plastic on the hanger broke. It's still so brittle. Oops. This is now going to be a table. Let's see if I can do that anyway. This one is a great plant for early spring. This will bloom like this no matter the weather until June. And once it gets up in the mid-90s, it kind of goes, it's just so hot, I can't take it anymore. And then it falls over, croaks, and it doesn't like the summer. It likes the winter. The mistake I find a lot of new folks make, the reason I brought this, is they see them in bloom in gardens through all of spring. So from now through, mine have been in bloom all winter. They'll come in at the end of April, first part of May, going, oh, I've got to have some of those. They'll buy the last crop of pansies or violas. They're both related. And then June comes and they die. And they're, oh, I have such brown thumbs. It's my fault. No, it's not your fault. You got the last of the crop. And so you should have planted those last October. And you would have had a whole lot more blossom or enjoyment out of it. I plant pansies in my containers I don't do the whole garden. It's too much. I need a break in the winter, but I do like to look out the window and see a little bright spot going, oh, my garden's just still looking good. And pansies is what I use to do that with. Javelina will like to eat these. Everything in fact, you like to eat these. You can take these, you want to impress guests, make a nice Cobb salad or something, take some pansy flowers and sprinkle them on top, and they're going, oh, you are a gardener. Wow. So they taste pretty good at ranch dressing. And they're pretty, they're edible. So kind of watch that. Yeah. Yeah. This is an annual. They live for a year. Perennials come back year after year after year. This is an annual, so no. Sometimes they can reseed. They'll come back by generationally by seed. That's not truly a perennial. If it's coming back by seed, it's considered an annual. It's not this. A perennial is going to be the same root coming back every year. That's a perennial. It's not one of those. So in the winter, how often do I water? Right now, about every 10, 14 days. Probably be 2 weeks before I water again because they're covered in snow right now. I'll let them thaw and then kind of start watering them again. So what I'll do just watering, just because containers, there's a secret to containers. So you saw the storm was coming. You saw it a week ahead of time. We all knew. You all got it on your app, on your phone. Everything in the yard, especially your containers. Things that are exposed more, container plants, they get cold from here, all the way around. Well, if you water them, that keeps them from being damaged. They'll go through that cold storm, especially if you see it going real cold. You go from, it was 60s down to teens. That's extreme. A 50 degree swing, that's a lot. And so that messes with plants. But if you hydrate them, they go through just fine. So if you do a lot of container or raised bed gardens, water before a major cold event comes and you're golden. It just does, they go through so much better. So that's what I did. We did that to every tree. We were frantically, we had every woman on deck. We're all gonna water today. This is our thing. Make sure that all the plants, inside, outside, upside, every plant is hydrated before that cold comes. So you'll feel there's quite a bit of weight. Some of the plants, that's the reason why. We wanted to make sure they went through. Also, for the class only, we're not going to promote this. $10 off if you want a hanging basket. On hanging basket pansies, just for you. Thank you for coming. Okay, I know. Well, what about us? Go ahead, type it in. What about us? If you come in today only, and you say, Ken said I could have $10 off on this, we'll do it, but we're not going to put a sign out. We're not going to promote it. We're not going to go social media. It's just for you all. Okay, just basically this morning, $10 off. Okay, going down the list, right here. This is an azalea. This is a dwarfed rhododendron. Rhodies are typically huge. They get taller than I am. They're big. This is a dwarfy. It only gets this big. So you can have the right plant in the right space, plant the right size that you want. Okay, the flower's not quite as big as your standard rhododendron. So standard rhodie is going to be a flower this big, like hydrangea size. This will be 3 times as many, but they'll be smaller, of this size. An azalea is the same thing. It's kind of hard to tell the difference between the two, but azaleas will have different colors, brighter, more reds, that kind of stuff. That's what you get with azaleas. One thing to watch with azaleas, this is where you make mistakes online. Buying a plant online, you bought it, it said azalea. Azalea is an azalea. Not true. Some are hardier than others. They'll take the cold or the extreme or the alkalinity better. So these are the ones that are for us. So only the finest garden centers will carry the right plants for here. There you go. So anyway, azaleas, again, animals don't eat them typically. Sometimes they'll nibble the flowers, but basically they don't like them. More shade. This will take more sun than a rhodie will, but I would say mid-June, 90 degrees, middle of the afternoon, it's not going to be happy. It will live, it just won't look pretty. If you give it some protection from at midday, it's beautiful year-round. Okay. This is one. Every yard should have one of these. This is Raphaelipdis, or the common name is Indian Hawthorne. Go by that name. Indian Hawthorns are evergreen. And these are all the flowers. Got a real fragrant pink to apple blossom kind of flower, depending on the variety. But it's got a real fragrant flower. Evergreen, just year-round. This is its winter color. It'll get a little brighter green as that new growth comes out, but then it goes back to this dark, rich forest green to it. This one loves brutal, hot sun. So I plant this in containers on either side of my garage because it's got that reflective south-facing heat. It's hot. But the garage, every garage needs softening, just a big square thing that holds that big, expensive car. The building is ugly. Let's face it, to dress it up a little bit would be kind of nice. So plants kind of help, a nice decorative pot. So I use these, and it takes the heat just fine. It loves the heat. So full sun, I would say at least 6 hours of sun. If you can give it all day sun, even better. You get more flowers to it, okay? And when I'm talking sun, I'm talking growing season. Like now, the days are so short. Things are hibernated, it doesn't matter. When it's actively growing, that's the growing season. That's April through October. You want at least 6 hours of sun then, okay? So it goes, how big does it get? There's different models. It can be anywhere from real tiny, so knee high, to I've got some bigger ones that get up to almost as head high as you and I. So it just depends on the size. Most of them are going to be in that shorter range. They're cuter, smaller leaves, easier to care for. So they're great against patios, entrance to your driveway, at the front edge or middle edge of the raised beds. So can you see that one, or is it too tall, Ken? I'll lean it towards you. This is the #1 selling vine by far. This is honeysuckle, Hall's honeysuckle to be exact, or japonica. This is the one that as a kid has that yellow flower to it. And you pulled the stamens out, sucked on the nectar. That's this one. It grows really well here. We use it to climb up fences, or we use it as ground covers. You'll see it both ways, and they do exceptionally well. This is its winter color. So it can be a little, if it gets really cold, I've seen it where it deciduated, it lost its foliage. One winter we went down to 0 degrees. It didn't like that. So it said, I'm going to shed my leaves and go hibernate for a couple weeks. Came right back, and it was as beautiful as ever. But honeysuckles do really, really well here. Animals seem to leave them alone. They're consistent bloomers. If yours hasn't bloomed as well as you liked, fertilize it. It needs, these big bloomers, they need regular food. And so lilacs, we're going to have this wave at the end of March. Everyone's lilacs are going to start blooming. Now these wave of customers that come in going, mine didn't, I've had it for 5 years. It bloomed every year except this year. Yeah, it's a food thing. You haven't fertilized in 5 years. I'd like to see how you look after not eating for 5 years. You're not going to look very good either, or be very energetic to go out there and bloom. It takes a lot of energy to get that blossom, that set on there. So honeysuckle. This is an old-fashioned plant that I'm trying to bring back. It's such a tough plant. So your grandparents called this firethorn. We call it Pyrocantha. So Pyrocantha it has those big white flower clusters in the spring, and then it'll form those clusters of red berries. Remember, as kids used to pick them off and chuck them at each other? Boys know what I'm talking about. So that's Pyrocantha. Birds love them. It's evergreen. It's got all the seasons. The only negative, wear thick, heavy leather gloves when you prune it, because it does have some thorns. If the kids are cutting your property and you want to stop that, plant some Pyrocantha. They'll stop messing with yours. They'll stop cutting the corner. So that's what this plant is. But it's a great hardy. I mean, this is commercial setting stuff. It's so robust. You can take that asphalt heat, pollution from cars. You can take all that and still look really, really good. These can get big. They'll naturally want to go up 6, 7, 8 foot tall. I've seen them taller. You can typically keep them down. If you hedge them, they seem to like that. They get even thicker and fuller if you cut them and shape them. But Pyrocantha is a great plant for here. It does really, really well. This is a native. In fact, both these guys are natives. This is a cousin of a native. This actually is a native. This is Oregon grape holly, or Mahonia, Oregon grape. This grows wild up in the Bradshaws, Mingus, underneath the canopy of the other trees. You just see it growing down there with Virginia creeper, some of those other natives. This is an evergreen holly. It has a holly leaf, kind of thick evergreen, waxy leaf, which makes it very tough. It blooms in spring. You see, it's just about to open. As soon as it warms up, this will be in full bloom. And so then they call it Oregon grape holly, grapes, because these flowers are put on little tiny grape clusters, little tiny fruits. They're quite good. You'll never get any because the birds love them. I use this in my own yard. I've got this majestic, just beautiful juniper. It's hundreds of years old. I mean, it's got character. I've pruned it up so you can see the actual trunk and the gnarliness. It's an alligator juniper. It's beautiful. And so I downlight it, I uplight it. I've got art underneath it. But then junipers just have this ugly effect on the ground underneath it. They shed so much stuff that they bury everything. It has this mulchy, like dead look. So I planted this underneath. This will actually take that and thrive. And so I've got this beautiful canopy about this underneath this big garden. Now it's just this big, solid green Oregon grape. And it's just about to go into bloom. It's just real pretty. So it's tough, really tough. Most junipers will kill off almost everything except this. Okay. This will take whatever you have. That's a good question. Sun or shade. It will take full sun. No problem. It naturally grows in the shaded areas just by itself. What I do is I'll plant this and I'll water it for maybe a year, and then I cut it off of all water. It's not been cared for since. So it just keeps spreading. The problem with this plant, it can be a little weedy. If you put it in a real happy place, nothing will be left except this. No weeds will grow there. It will keep grandkids out of the gardens. I mean, nothing's going to mess with this. It just spreads thick. So it has these little runners or rhizomes kind of run around, just reseed or comes back up. So it's a good way to go. So it's a good, strong plant in the right place. Yep, full sun or shade, doesn't matter. It gets a bright red color. If it's in more sun, just stays green in the shade. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so she's got some beautiful raised beds, and she put some of these in, or the previous owner did, and it's doing wonderfully. Will it choke itself out? No, it will leap out of the container. It will go to the next. It will hitch a ride on the back of pickup trucks. It just finds a way of spreading through the yard. So it'll spill out over the edge, start coming down. It'll come out from underneath the block, go out over here. It'll find a way to spread. So if you want, what you can do is I'll brutally rip it up every once in a while. Once it goes into my, let's say I've got a dry wash. It's right there, wants to kind of take over the dry wash. I don't want that. I'll just brutally rip it up. I'm brutal with it. And then I'll fertilize right afterwards, recover just like that. So it's got those runners, pretty easy to get out of the ground. Just treat it that way. Treat it with abuse once it's too full. In the back. Yeah, that's how you do it. Yeah, that's how you do it. You'll know once you start pulling it up where to cut it. I actually try not to cut it. I just try to brutally rip it, because a ripped cut won't come back as easy as a fine cut. If you cut it with pruners, it'll start sprouting from that cut, just coming up. A jagged cut, it's kind of like your skin. Get a real fine cut, it heals real fast. A jagged cut takes forever. Same thing with this. So I'm more brutal with it. I'm ruthless. Yeah. Oh, interesting. I don't know. If you've got to put a stone wall to keep the plant in check, probably the wrong plant. So the question was, how deep do the roots go? Not very deep, maybe a foot, if that. Just got kind of a chubby root to it. So it holds a lot of moisture at the root level. So you'll find they come up pretty easy. You can take a shovel easily, pop them up. It's not that big a deal to maintain them. Just know that you're going to have some maintenance. But with any plant, you're going to have some maintenance. That's part of it, just not very much. Once a year, you're fine. Yeah. 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 No, it will not choke itself out. You'll have to choke it for it. Take it by the throat, just hold it till it stops growing in that space. This is Yucca. Enough about Oregon grape holly. This also comes in two other sizes. We call it standard Oregon grape holly, gets this big, kind of chest high or so. You've got dwarfed, which gets about this size, and then you got creeping, which gets that size. They all do really well here. Just pick the size that you want and be happy with it. This is Yucca. Now we have a lot of yuccas that grow wild here. Banana yuccas, red yuccas, all these. This one happens to be golden sword yucca. I like this in full sun. It likes the sun. So all day sun, and then put a spotlight on it. Give it more sun, just heat lamp. It would love that. This does really well with that crushed, like mocha colored rocks, which is really hot. This would do fine with that. It's got a real fleshy root to it that holds a whole lot of moisture. So it does have a little white flower that comes up. This is one I use for myself. I've got a bowl. And the design right now in front of magazines is a yucca inside of a brightly colored, on a patio or courtyard kind of thing. It looks really good because it's so tough. You can forget this and it will still be alive when you come back from that Panama Canal trip or whenever we start traveling again. It'll still be alive when you get back. Or if the irrigation goes south, hasn't watered for a month. Looks really good against dark colors. Put this with a blue prickly pear. Just looks really good as a true native. Everyone new to the area wants cactus. Well, can I go to Phoenix and bring cactus up? Yes, you can. And every one of them will die next winter. They don't like the winter. They'll take the summer. Yuccas and agaves are natural. They do adapt really well to higher altitude in that cold winter. So focus in more on these for that southwest kind of look. Okay, we're doing okay on time. So these two are cousins. This is red yucca. This one has a red flower to it, hovers about right here. Hummingbirds just love it. Consistent bloomer. And so we're trying to bring in more and more red yuccas, yellow yuccas. I've got some of those coming into stock here pretty quick. So they come in a lot of colors. This blue foliage for that red flower is really pretty. This one's got a white flower to it, just different. Okay? Same but different. Yeah, this one here. There's a coral yucca. It comes in basically variations of red is what you get. Sometimes you'll see yellow. We also have what's called brake light yucca. Some of these can get too big. So we've developed a dwarfed one. It only gets 18 inches, a foot tall, with the color of the flower is brake light red. And it is really red. So we're trying to breed plants. These are kind of like puppy dogs. You breed them together, come up with new variations. So we came up with a dwarfed and then a red variety called brake light. So there's a lot of varieties. Yep. This is, you all know what this is? Up against the chaparral grows wild with the pinyon pines. Manzanita, very good. Yep, very good. So it's just about to open. We've seen a few of them open up. When it's a bright day, you'll see them, that bell-shaped kind of flower. This is another one the bees use. They depend on this for their survival, manzanita. So this will be a pollinator for your honeybees and stuff. But it's evergreen. That's what it looks like. It's got the red bark, classic, like a manzanita. We've got 4 varieties. We've got a ground cover called Kinnick manzanita, evergreen, a little bit smaller with red bark. And we've got 3 different heights of manzanita, from the standard big one down to sometimes that's just too big for a lot of the garden areas. You have a panchito or some dwarfed varieties, but they're all equally as hardy. If you kill this, it will be from overwatering. So put it in the ground, try to neglect it. Now some of you're not gardeners, you're waterers. So don't do that with this plant or you'll kill it. So it likes to breathe, it likes aeration at the root level. And heavy clay soil. It's not going to like that Granville Valley area soil. If you're trying to grow out there, I would say leave a portion of the root ball out of the ground. and then mound that soil up slightly to this plant. So at least this much of the roots can breathe on this plant. So it's very drought hardy. So it doesn't like gooey, wet feet. You'll see it naturally growing where the granite, crushed granite, where it just drains really well. That's where you see this growing wild. But it'll be equally as hardy, just tough, evergreen, nice, thick, full, great plant for here. In containers, in the ground, it'll grow anywhere. Full sun, I would say that's another one. More sun, the better. Treat it with and then put a spotlight on it, make it hot. It's gonna like that. This one too, this is Spanish broom. You'll see this bloom typically the end of March through April, basically. First part of May is when this blooms. It's covered in yellow, like you won't see any. It's kind of like a pencil plant if you're from the south. Sort of has that look, only it's much stiffer, so it makes it very drought hardy. But these are all the flower buds. You've seen a little node up and down the stem of this. Each one of those is a flower that will bloom here in another month, month and a half. And it's just covered in, I don't know if that does that. That sort of does it justice. See that? I'm trying to help you. Let me just, zoom. Yeah, there you go. So broom, literally there'll be no green, it'll all be flowers. Very, very fragrant flowers. Scotch broom is a little bit shorter. Spanish broom a little bit taller. All brooms seem to do well here. So we'll sell 3 or 4 varieties of brooms. Depends on the size, and the colors can change. Mainly they're going to be yellows. Sometimes we've got a Scotch broom that's got a red tinge to it, red and white look to it. But they all have this pencil look to it in the winter, which is evergreen. So it's creating photosynthesis without foliage, through the stems. Then it has the flowers to it. Very tough plant again. Again, this one, I would water it, full sun. I would water this for a year or two, and I would bend that irrigation back, and I would just cut it off, see how it does. Literally, you will forget that you have irrigation to it by the time it just does it's so tough. Okay? Yeah, yeah. Seems like personal experience. I've done that too. Yeah. I love it.
I think we might resurrect the last one, but they're cool. When they grow up, I just raise the skirt on them and make them look like a tree.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
So for you folks online, her husband's killed 3. 2 for sure, 1 might come back. But by watering, so she pulls the irrigation off, he puts it back on. So. Yeah, so why do they live in like wet environments up in Oregon area, Northwest, and here it'll be, yeah. We'll try it. So you got personal experience from 2 gardeners that tell you if you overwater them. I think it's a heavy clay and the alkalinity. You put those 2 things together, that's what makes them turn yellow and just go south on you. Once they start turning yellow, it's almost over. And so maybe if you're a really good gardener, you maybe bring them back, but it's almost better just come get a new one. It's for $30, start over again. So it's a heavy clay soil, and the alkalinity is why they can struggle more. You're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. You're in Prescott, Arizona, where the extreme light elevation plays with things differently. And really the water's the issue. Water, wind, and that dryness affects your gardening. That's what, as gardeners, we're adjusting to those things. Once you learn how to adjust to those, your gardening just goes up like that. So, but you'll make mistakes. It's okay. You'll learn. You'll kill 1 or 2. I've killed hundreds, trying to see if they'll work. I'm always testing. This is rosemary and lavender. I'll get those in a second. I've got too many. Rosemary is a great. I think every yard should have at least 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 rosemaries. They come in shrub form. It's kind of a ball-shaped hedge or shrub, and they come in ground cover. They'll just spread like this, kind of get about, I don't know, a foot tall, and they kind of spread like this. They both do well if you get the right variety. Now, here's where you can make a mistake. You Phoenix folks, you're not in the flatlands and the deserts anymore. Those varieties don't migrate up here very well. The cold can damage them. So you want to get the right variety that has more. Some varieties have more antifreeze in them. They'll take the cold better than others. And so we're selling the ones that are adapted well for up here, especially when you get in those ground cover varieties. They're really sensitive. So really there's only 2 that really grow well. And we, of course, we carry those, not the others. But there's like 50 different types of rosemaries. I see too many people heading down to the grocery store, getting that one, planting outdoors. It does fine. This winter it dies. They think it's their fault. You were just sold the wrong plant. It's not you. It's the plant. You were sold the wrong plant. It shouldn't have been sold up here. This one is a shrub variety. Now this will start having this bright blue flower. The whole thing will be blue, usually through the month of March. And we've got such a long growing season here that it will actually turn back to back to green. That fragrance started to get to me. It'll go back into bloom again in the fall. Has 2 distinct bloom cycles, has this great evergreen look to it, and yes, you can use it in the kitchen. So I love taking the bigger shrub ones. I have one called barbecue rosemary. It's on long stems. You cut that stem off, take some of the foliage off, using the skewers on the grill. Oh, best pork chicken you've ever had. Oh my gosh, it's so good. So use the stems as skewers, and they turn out really well. But you can use them anyway like that. So rosemary. A companion to that I think is even tougher. These are lavenders. Lavenders and animals don't like the taste of herbs. I don't care if it's thyme, oregano. No, even oregano. They don't like that. Sometimes basil they might eat, but most herbs, they do not like the taste. It's too strong, too pungent. They don't like the taste. So they'll tend to leave this one very much alone. You've got Spanish. You've seen it starting to bud up. It's not quite in bloom, but again, another couple weeks, it'll be in bloom. Have these beautiful purple flowers that hover, usually for a month or 2. And then it just has this pretty foliage. This one, I really like this one. I like this silver foliage to it. I grow it in an oxblood red container, a big one, like this big. It is stunning. It just has this beautiful, perfectly shaped round. The flowers are almost like frosting, like a bonus. The plant itself looks great. You brush up against it. It repels flies, mosquitoes. I don't know how you use it in the kitchen. Potpourris, I guess. So it's just a pretty plant. Very drought hardy again. Again, if you kill this, it'll be from overwatering or in a soil that just does not drain. And so it just stays too gooey wet. It won't like that. It likes to breathe at the root level. So I would say this one and this are kind of real similar. If you're trying to grow the 2, treat this like this and you'd be fine. They'd be companions for each other. So lavender. What gets confusing with lavender, there's so many varieties. There's Spanish, there's English, there's French lavenders. It seems like they're all Mediterranean influenced. Spanish is the one, that's this one, has the bigger flower to it. This has had a hard time in the past because we're zone 7. Most Spanish lavenders are a zone 8 or 9. They're just above us, or more of a desert variety. We found some that are actually have more antifreeze in them, so they'll take the cold. So this is zone 7, goes down to 10 degrees. So it'll go through our harshest winters and come through just fine and be evergreen. Okay, so kind of be careful. Watch that one. The hardiest of them are the English. English will go down to minus 20 or maybe it's minus 40 degrees. Some crazy cold we'll never see. The flower isn't quite as pretty. It's more elongated, kind of has more like a grass type of flower to it. Doesn't have that great distinct like that kind of flower to it. Okay? So they have different types. French lavender is one they use in a lot of the recipes and stuff. French. Gotta love the French, yeah. Pruning. How do you prune lavender specifically? So my rosemary, I just shape, usually in March. I'll just give it a haircut. I don't do a lot with it. Some of my creeping ones that flow a lot, I'll go, okay, it's kind of like the Oregon grape holly. It's creeping too much. Just go, no, I don't want you over there. You're coming back to here, and I just take that runner off and cut it off back Keep it where I want it. The shrubs are even easier. You just give them a haircut. It's fine. Lavender, hardly need to do anything. I'll take the old flowers off. I've already done that because they'd faded last fall. And I just want it to be a pretty foliage. And I just cut off all the flowers. You really don't have to do hardly anything to them. Yeah, something else? Cotton lavender, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So cotton lavender is not lavender, it's Santalina, totally different plant, but it sort of has a gray foliage look to it. It's got a yellow flower, that's a real distinctive to it. With my Santalina, I use it down my walkways. So I've got a 2-story house, so guests, we entertain a lot on the back patio. And so we've got these steps from the driveway down the side of the house to the back, through the gates to the back. It's dark at night. So I'll use Santalina to highlight the pathways. And then lighting, of course, but that bright color picks up moonlight. I'll use it that way. It tends to overcroach into the walkway too much. And so about every 2-3 years, I'm brutal to it. I just cut the living daylights out of it. And you can't kill it. And so I just cut it way back. Every year I cut it back to stay behind the pathway. But about every 3 or 4 years, I'll whack it right all the way down to the ground. It just comes back like it was nothing. And okay, well, fertilize right afterwards, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah, it's overgrowing. Start over. Cut it back real hard. So her Santalina, or cotton lavender, is starting to open up. It's getting old. So you're either going to replace it because it doesn't look good that way, or you're going to whack it off, fertilize it with the all-purpose food, and then pray over it. Say a mantra, play some Beethoven, do all that gardener stuff. And then it'll probably just come right back and be fine. You go, Ken, that was the most brilliant move ever. Thank you. You're set for 3 years. I'll usually do that in March. So yeah, March is when I do most of my pruning. I wait on a lot of the pruning. This is just me. That's kind of hard knocks. I don't prune my roses back until March because I pruned them earlier. And then there's still some cold storms like this storm, and it burns it back even. So I've got them down to the perfect 3 to 5 stems, knee level, perfect. And then cold comes and kills back the canes even more, and I'm left with a stub. If I wait, March is not a cold month, it's a wet month. We can get snow, but we don't get that single-digit stuff. We'll get down to 20s, 30s, but it's not really cold, not that bitter cold. And so I find that my autumn sage or Salvia gregii, I've pruned them back too early, especially young ones, got real cold, and then it killed it. So maybe that's a freak thing. I've killed lots of plants, but I find if I just wait until the cold is over and prune it back in March, that foliage on top of it tends to insulate it enough where I haven't lost one since I've started waiting. It's hard. Man, you understand. You get brand new tools, you get battery operated, you're just pruning stuff. You can't stop. You just have to keep going. It's like, And so I've just made a mistake a couple of times. Now I'm trying to be more restrained and prune it in March. March is your time. Yeah. The other one to watch, your evergreen hedges, let's say photinias and junipers. I'll wait on that one to prune. You can prune it anytime you want, but let's say junipers, you can have a real butchered look. You get the big stem, you can just see, whoa, they really cut that one hard. But if you wait until March, right before, because they're going to start growing in March, I'll prune them right before they start growing. Not that it's healthier for the plant, it looks bad less long. Does that make sense? So it's just how long is it going to look butchered? I just prune it in March, and it quickly grows out of it. By April 15. It looks brand new again. So just personal things I've learned. So. Yeah, prune dead stuff. Anytime you see dead, dying, or disease, get it out of there. Because dead, dying, disease just attracts more death and decay. So anytime you see that dead stuff, pull it out of there. But the major pruning, shaping, getting things back in order, mostly in March. Yeah. Yeah. So he lives in Prescott Valley. He's asking about bees. Do we have mason bees? Yes, we do. You just don't see mason bees because they're solitary, lonely. They don't travel in groups. They don't tag team. They're individual bees. So a lot of the flies you see are really mason bees. So but we do have them here, yes. And then we don't see a lot of bees. Why? Well, first of all, we've taken their natural prairie and stuff, we bulldozed it. So until we start planting back things that they like, they're going to be foraging out where we moved them. Well, backhoes are not friendly to butterflies and bees. And so, but once you start gardening for them, they start to come back. We're actually seeing that our wild populations are on the increase, whereas domesticated are on the decrease. Almonds, you need bees to be trucked in to pollinate the entire orchard. We're struggling with that. We don't know why. It's mites or pesticides. We don't know why, but they're studying it. We'll figure it out. Wild bees, though, are on the increase locally. So why? I have no idea. I think part of it is we're just planting more gardens for them. So we have a whole population of gardeners. That's all. They're fanatical. They like pollinating. They like pollinators. They'll go pollinate stuff. And they are attracting those butterflies, hummingbirds, bees back into their gardens. So, yeah.
I have 60,000 bees.
Ah, you got a whole hive. Do you do honey too?
Yeah.
Are you honey? Awesome. I love it. See, I told you, they're everywhere.
Today at the Prescott Library is our Prescott Bee Club meeting.
Awesome.
I have 2 questions.
Hold on, before you go,
Okay.
take a question, but that's important enough to invite everyone. So today at noon at the Prescott Library, the beekeeper, what's the name of it? Prescott Bee Club is going to meet, and you meet once a month?
Yep.
Once a month, every...
Is this the 3rd Saturday?
The 3rd Saturday of every month, the Prescott Bee Club. You're invited. It's free, or you can call in a favor, and a friend will get you the door. It's fun. So beekeepers are nerdy gardeners, actually.
Yes, speakers every month.
It's awesome.
Every month, it's really fair. I wouldn't miss it.
Yep.
That's why I'm here, because I'm converting about 1,800 square feet of grass.
Yep.
To English gardens.
Awesome.
And each one is going to tell a story.
Yes.
And I need flowers.
So for you, just knowing who you are, you should have boxwood in that garden because it's a pollinator. Bees love it because it blooms real early. When they're out foraging early, it's there for them. So generally, we try to discourage bees here at the garden center because some people freak out. They have no interest in you at all. I've taken bees. They're busy pollinating. They don't see you. You're moving it to someone's cart, and they'll follow the plant as you're moving around going, hey, where are you going with this? So, but some people freak out with bees. Not everyone. Some people are truly allergic. So they need to be careful.
And
so,
they're not near their queen. So they're not
right.
guarding anything. The worst thing you can do is swat at one or enclose it. Like your hand goes to a plant, she'll go. And by the way, the bees are gone. She said the boys are out foraging.
Oh, really? I've heard 2 things, but I got it from the source. There we go. Love it.
When they need them.
Yeah.
They're all women. But yeah, so bees they're colorblind. They don't want to, and they're deaf.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. See, if you're here at the class, you learn a lot more than online. Bees are deaf. They're all females. They make men when they need them. That's the only time. So I like bees, and then we'll let it go from here because we've gone over an hour. Here, we're really familiar with bees. They'll come up and they'll warn you. They'll bump you. They'll, hey, you're bugging me. Hey, little man, or little girl, come on. You just kind of don't swat them. Just get them, get out of their way, and you keep moving on. So I've never been stung. Hornets and wasps are worse. So yeah, your 2 questions and we're done.
And a lot of people ask, does a bee know that they're going to die if they sting you? Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So they're not like a hornet or a wasp, killers. They have to really make a decision to kill you.
I told you, bee people are nerdy gardeners. Yeah, I told you.
My
Boxwood?
They're so cute. They're super almost black.
Yeah.
Why? They've not done that last winter. This winter, they're super are so green that they're black.
So her boxwoods, for you folks online, have turned this really rich forest green, like deeper than normal, right? So why? I don't know. Winter, it's seasonal, I don't know. Food probably is a pH and food thing. Did you fertilize them last fall? That could help them. You can see some of that. My guess is they'll say that color, the new growth will be lighter green. So the new growth will actually lighten that back up. It's actually a good thing. I think too many of the landscape looks yellow, gold, sick, pale. I think we need more green in our lives. So I don't think it's unhealthy. I think it's okay. And your second question was, oh, all you bee people. They're all the same too. All bee people are exactly the same. Go to the club, there'll be 20 of them right there. They're all just super fascinating. They know all the flowers. 60. Wow. That's awesome. There's a lot of beekeepers here, a lot of them. I've thought about having bees here because this is like a natural, it's a bee haven. It's just, I've got too many customers that would be freaked out by it. So I kind of go, well, nah. I know there's some beekeepers back in the neighborhood. They're bees and come and visit, but I can't keep bees here because it's like snakes. You're either terrified of them or they're okay. So it's just, we had a 5-foot bull snake show up, which are real beneficial. They keep rats and mice and gophers down. They are the best for your gardens ever. They look like a rattlesnake with a real small head. So one came in, the whole crew's freaking out. Michelle especially is terrified. It's fun to watch her. Says, big snake, what do you do with a huge 5-foot snake? I can't kill him, he's my friend. So I picked him up by the tail, walked him out the back gate, put him in a trash can. You're not gonna hold a 5-foot snake in a trash can, he's too strong. I ran him over to the boulders over here, which is where he came from, and released him. Keep the rats down over there. But some of these snakes, you're gonna come in March, first part of April is our migration season. So right now, they're all hibernating together in these big dens. Hundreds of snakes. It's kind of spooky. You'll see Facebook posts on snake dens. Like people will fall, small children, dogs will fall in and be vaporized before snakes, that kind of post. But then they'll come out when it's warm enough, and they'll go out, they'll migrate miles and miles to different areas looking for food, keeping basically the grasshoppers and that kind of stuff down. So you'll see, if you see a snake in the garden, all of a sudden, their day and they're just tired and they're resting in the sun, and by tomorrow they'll be gone. Probably by the end of the day they'll be gone, moving. They just need a break for a moment. So try not to freak out. We are in snake country. Rattlesnakes in the garden center, you can't have rattlesnakes where customers are. You got to go shovel to the head. But all the other snakes go home with me personally. So I've got a snake can, coffee can. I go out, I take that 3-foot garter snake, whatever, put them in the can, release them to the backyard. And so I don't have grasshoppers, I don't have mice, or very many. But you can't have snakes in your garden center because some people freak out. So anyway, my name is Ken, here to help you. I'll hang out. Yeah, thank you very much. If I didn't get to your question, I'll just be here as long as you want, and then we'll go answer garden questions. Okay?
There's no such thing as bull snakes out there.